With just 12 shopping days left till Christmas, if you haven't made your list, it's about time. Mike Castillero, however, has made his shopping list, and it's a pretty short one. He wants a presidential pardon for Christmas. Michael, welcome to the truth.
Thank you for having me, John.
So you claim to have been a victim of the Biden lawfare and the Biden Justice Department. Tell us your story.
So I had me and two partners opened a company called StraightPath Venture Partners, all strictly in pre-IPO investing. Just to give you what that is in a nutshell is pre-initial public offerings. If somebody works at a company, let's say Palantir, um, they don't really, the company chooses instead of paying you a salary, they give you shares that eventually, if the company does go public, you could cash them out. So in 2013, the SEC relaxed rules that you could do private stock transactions with institutions like ourselves. So in 2017, being that we built a nice network of those contacts, we decided to launch our own fund. President Trump was in office. SEC Chair Jay Clayton, they relaxed rules for the regular mom and pop investor to invest in these companies. Plus, they were trying to also have these companies go public the untraditional way. Instead of having to pay Goldman Sachs $500 million and Morgan Stanley another $200 million or whatever it is to go public, they were going public themselves and maybe paying 20 or 30 million in fees, these companies. So our business was born. In 2018, 2019, we up until 2020, we accumulated 6.5 million shares of Palantir. At around $8 was our average cost. Everything was disclosed to the customers. We were an exempt reporting advisor. That means obviously there's no trading, so we don't have to disclose trading registers and so on. So in 2021, administration changes. And by the end of 2021, they're putting almost like a noose around our neck, saying that they took all our voluntary information that we gave them as an exempt reporting advisor, and they turned it into a build a case. They said they wanted us to pay a fine to continue accumulating information on us. And in May of 2022, they shut us down with all the information that we gave them voluntarily. And then in 23, and as my lawyer at the time stated, he goes, way too many man hours have been spent on this for them not to cause an indictment. So they came up with a civil action stating that we were a Ponzi-like scheme. Ponzi-like.
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 I've never heard that.
Right. And the judge who presided over that was Judge Lewis Kaplan. We all know him from the E. Jean Carroll case.
So this was in New York?
Yes, Southern District of New York, because in 21, I relocated to Florida with my family. So, being that the company was headquartered there, I mean, the Southern District of New York can pull a case out of
right
middle of Iowa if they feel like it.
The proverbial indict a ham sandwich.
Exactly.
The inventor of the indicting a ham sandwich.
Yep.
So what happened?
It's the end of 23. They put an indictment. And on October 20th of this year was our court case. John, we won every day in court. I got to tell you, every day, all our lawyers were so excited every day that they chose not to even, the defense rested. We didn't even call in any witnesses because out of 2,200 customers, they brought in 4 that really did business with our fund because their friends or neighbors made so much money with us, but they were ticked off at the receiver after the company was taken from us. They brought in experts that they probably paid about $1 million. Taxpayer probably paid $1 million for them to bring in experts to try to debunk our what we were and what we operated with. I mean, they were leaving with their tail between their legs because we had debunked them too. So at the end of all that, the Judge Jesse Furman, who wouldn't when Mr. President Trump wanted to deport Mahmoud Khalil, the guy who was protesting in Columbia University, one of the first ones. He's the one that blocked it. Once jury instructions came, basically said, you should look at you should basically try them as an investment advisor, which we weren't.
You are not an investment
We
advisor.
were a private exempt reporting advisor, which we had to have all our filings. We were subject to audits. We were just not, we didn't our if you look at the rules of the exempt reporting advisor, it basically states that you just have to disclose that you're doing business right, and if they think they're doing something wrong, they issue corrective action. That's what Securities and Exchange Commission is. It's supposed to issue a corrective action, give you time to fix it. They just never did. And through my lawyer on the pardon, Peter Tickton, he's coming out and stated that he's found a ton of cases that the SDNY and the SEC basically were just coming after people left and right. Same thing. They found they were just a weapon and a narrative that they were using basically on a template on anybody and everybody else.
So you weren't the only firm that they went after.
No, we were the first ones, and then they used a template of ours to go after about 7 or 8 other ones after.
Yeah.
Who were vocal about their beliefs, because there's some other firms operating that are either not vocal about their beliefs or they stayed quiet about their beliefs and they haven't gone after them. So they cherry picked who they wanted to go after.
What do you think? You made somebody mad along the way?
When the three of us formed our firm, I know a lot of people, were losing a lot of business because we had a lot of relationships and a lot of connections on the unicorn side to acquire the shares. Plus, being that we had such good relationships, we were the cheapest on the street. So when you're the cheapest on the street, you're going to get, everybody's going to want to do business with you eventually. And by the end of 21, everybody did want to do business with us eventually because of the successes that we had. We had 7 companies go public. We had Palantir, Airbnb, SoFi, Pinterest, Lyft, and I'm drawing a blank on the other 2. I think Grab and 23andMe. If I repeat it, I'm sorry, and we did 2 to 3x returns, except for Lyft. Lyft was a flat investment, but everything else was probably a 2 to 3x. Palantir is at $185 a share today if customers still had it or have it.
Well, who was the aggrieved party? I mean, who did the SEC? This was an SEC action, is that right?
An SEC action that after a year and a half they converted into a DOJ, as Southern District of New York action.
But it was a civil action, not criminal. Did I understand that correctly?
Correct. It was a civil action that in late 22, we found out that the SEC was communicating through our attorneys. We found out that the SEC and the SDNY were communicating. And our attorneys asked for that correspondence because we were entitled to it. And I believe the response is if we give you the communication, we're just going to indict them because we don't want to give it to you. Very, you think you're living in the United States, but it's almost like we're living in communist China. And when our lawyers pressed for the communications to a point, that's when they chose to indict.
So then they changed their civil action into a criminal action.
Correct. Which is totally different charges from the civil action, which they changed their whole narrative on why they wanted to come after us.
So what was the criminal indictment? I assume that you were indicted.
Yes. 4 counts of wire fraud, investment advisor fraud, obstruction of justice, 2 counts of that. Everything else related to investment advisor fraud, which wasn't us.
What were the factual basis for the obstruction charge?
So they combined May into basically made May look like one long day. In May of 21, so in May 1st of 21, we we let our counsel know that had some emails for some sales agents that we just didn't want to have, and we disposed of their emails and limited we removed their email access. So by May 20 something, the SEC is asking for everybody's emails. What's a 25 day gap, right? Now they portrayed me as a long day that they said, okay, why don't you have these emails? I'm like, because we let them go in early in the first of the month. We let them go in the first of the month. You're asking for their information. By the end of May, we didn't even know you were going to ask for anything about their information. So everybody was made aware of anything across the board, and they just ran, they twisted truth. They showed the jury thousands of text messages. Me and my wife's social media account, which 2020, me and my wife went down the rabbit hole, obviously being stuck home and whatever's going on, and avidly posted about the election being stolen and all these other actions that led them to do that. Plus, I moved to Florida in January 21. My first order of business was on January 20th, I was getting a tour of Trump Jupiter.
Of Trump what?
Of Trump Jupiter, the golf club.
Oh, yes.
So as basically as Joe Biden sworn in, I'm at the same exact time getting a tour of the country, because I go, honey, listen, we don't know anybody. We gotta be people like us. Maybe it's a good place for us to make friends and so on and whatnot. So turns out in Arctic Frost, they subpoenaed the Trump business accounts. My definitely monthly payment was there. My dues were definitely there because I was a member throughout until basically I couldn't afford it anymore.
And they subpoenaed the records of Trump International Golf Club simply because you were a member?
During the Arctic Frost, they said that led to so many other things. If you're following that Arctic Frost, I mean, I looked up the file, the Excel spreadsheets of all the bank accounts they subpoenaed, and on top of it, they were already launching a sham investigation into us. So I'm sure they find a way to shove a square peg into a round hole. They're gonna keep trying to find a way to do it.
So what happened then? You were indicted. You had a trial. When the trial was in October?
October 20th, and ended on November 4th.
Through November 4th?
Mm-hmm.
So the trial lasted almost 3 weeks.
Almost 3 weeks.
Wow. That must have been incredibly difficult for you and your wife.
Couldn't tell you there was a day that my lawyers did not leave there with a smile, which is rare. And it just continued to the day that we got jury deliberation. The jury deliberated in 4 hours because Judge Furman basically told him to deliberate a certain way.
So you had to oppose the prosecutor and the judge, it sounds like.
Absolutely. Think about it, out of the 25 judges in the Southern District of New York, 20 are Democrat. 80% of the draw in that district is Democrat. And I'm dealing with a Judge Kaplan in the civil case, who's a Clinton appointed judge, and then you have Furman, who's an Obama appointed judge.
So what did the jury say?
The jury, they deliberated in 4 hours. We were guilty on all counts because he told them mid through deliberation, they asked, can you define again what the Investment Advisor Act is? And then 2 hours later, they basically came in and said we were guilty on all charges because they were instructed to charge us a certain way. So
what are your lawyers saying now? And I'm afraid to ask you, how much did you spend on your defense?
Millions of dollars, probably $5 to $7 million.
My God.
And it's been since 22, basically, I'm unemployable. I mean, I've had Uber and Lyft reject me from driving. So it's like, I'm in a pretty bad spot.
What happened to the other 7 or 8 firms that they targeted?
They're
That they
prepping to go to
knew,
trial now. We went first. Now they get to go now.
but now this is now the Trump Justice Department, right?
Correct. But the judges are who they are, and there's been problem with judges all throughout the nation.
Yeah, but my point is, if there wasn't some validity, would the Trump Justice Department continue to prosecute these people?
Right, but you have you have some district in New York where there's 2/3 of probably the lawyers are also Democrat.
Mm.
And how much can Jay Clayton, who's been appointed by President Trump, really oversee? Or what happens if you get rid of 3/4 of that staff just because of how they're operating? I can tell you firsthand, they found they worked so hard to create their own, to build a story, to make up their own truth out of even facts that they fabricated, or if they found something that, because again, we exploded when Palantir went public. And it's not something that, we exploded, and it was 2020. Palantir went public in September of 2020. The three of us were home because nobody could go to work because we were in New York,
Mm.
right? Me and my two partners were home. They took all that. They took the explosion of our company, and probably the job that should have been done by 10 people was being done by three, working from home without no help. And if there was an error or something, let's say something got memorialized incorrectly, that's where they harped on, right? If something was done, an internal error that we knew that was an error, but we just maybe didn't remove the file, or something like that, something so minimal, that's when that's what they used to build the truth.
Well, were there any victims in this whole case? I mean, were there any victims that came forward and said we lost money? I mean,
No,
wouldn't there have to be some sort of victim before you would be guilty of harming someone? I mean,
2,200 customers, not one complaint. The complaints have come now from Judge Kaplan giving the company to the receiver that took over the company.
so where does that leave you? What are your lawyers telling you now? I mean, it sounds like to me, and I am a lawyer and practiced corporate law for a number of years. It sounds to me, if everything that you've told me is correct, and I have no reason to doubt it, but it seems like that you would have pretty strong grounds for an appeal,
Extremely, yeah, we do.
particularly on the instruction that you were not an exempt investment advisory firm.
But how long is that going to take? Another 2 or 3 years?
Yeah,
I can't
it's
sustain financially to last that long.
it's a tough road.
The emotional stress of my wife, my kids. Now kids are walking up to my son in school and telling him that their dad's a thief and all that. I just want that over with. I just want my life back. At that point, I'm going to be fighting for a business that the government took away from me, from my beliefs, longer than I actually owned it. Which
Well,
is, which is, which I'll fight. If it was me by myself, I don't care. I will fight till I'm blue in the face, and that's why I'm on with you today, because I've wanted to expose this story for a long time, and counsel kept telling us not to. Don't do it. Don't do it. And now I don't care. You know. Now I think. I mean, I probably have the best man that God's blessed me with Peter Tickton having the opportunity to put my pardon application in front of President Trump. But the story needs to be told because you constantly hear these senators telling you, if they could do it to me, they'll do it
Yeah.
to you.
Yep.
I'm a regular guy. I'm
You're
nothing.
living proof.
I'm living proof that they do and that they can do it to. And how many million other stories like myself that we don't even know about that people are just dead in the water. And I'm not afraid anymore because, like my business partner Brian says, he goes, "Oh, but it could change. It could change them at sentencing. They this and that." I go, I told him 1 minute in jail is too much for what they've done to us. So whether he gives me 5 years or 25 years, which that's what my lawyer says I could get up to, at this point, 1 minute is wrong. 1 minute in jail is wrong.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know the intricacies of your case, but it seems like you're almost obligated to appeal to keep yourself
100%.
to preserve your rights.
100%.
Will your lawyers do it?
Yes, we're going to appeal, but it has to happen in sentencing in March.
Well, if you file the appeal now, wouldn't that stay the sentencing?
My lawyer said they're going to do it. There's a process. They have to first file a motion
Yes.
that basically states that they believe the case was a sham and the way the jury deliberated was a sham or something like that. I forgot how he worded it. He came back to me and stated that the judge is basically going to do nothing with that.
Right.
Then at sentencing or right before sentencing, we file for an appeal, but we still would have to go to sentencing.
Well, I can feel the pain in your voice, and I really hate what you and your family have had to go through. I hope that if you are in fact innocent of the charges, that you can get justice. And if you have not done anything wrong, and I'm struggling to find out what you did wrong. I mean, you're saying there are no victims, and that the only people that are complaining are the people that are complaining about the receiver that the judge appointed after they took over your business. I mean, that's breathtaking to me that they would have allowed that evidence to come into the case. It sounds to me that would be another ground for an appeal. But again, I don't know.
We tried to bring in also the receiver or how much the receivers made and all facts that are part of the case, obviously. And they blocked us on bringing out how much the receivers made since they took the company from us, how the receiver is uncooperative to clients, uncommunicative to clients, ignoring the 200 some odd 238 complaints that the receiver has received after they took the company from us, and how they're just not servicing their customer correctly. We had 2,200 customers, and there was three of us. They have the receiver, they got their little network of that money gets probably passed down by a bunch of people how it's made. And if there was a problem with a customer, we handle if a customer had a question, if a customer needed documents as an investment or anything else, no matter how busy we were, we took care of our clients. Because a lot of our business was the boutique broker dealers were sending us their customers. So we were an institutional sales force. A lot of other people wanted to buy our product. We were listed on Charles Schwab platform, which is probably one of the most conservative platforms that anybody has. So anybody can get on. They wanted our product, and advisors were using that platform to list our product. Nobody had a problem with us, except the administration changed, and then they had a problem, and then the government decided to have a problem with us after the administration. They said in 2022 when they shut us down, it was a 4-year emergency shutdown.
Well, it certainly is a shame, and I have a lot of empathy for you, and we'll say a prayer for you and your family and your your business partners.
Thank
Um,
you.
and I hope that your lawyer can get this in front of the current Justice Department, and that they're the ones who have to really make a recommendation to the president on a pardon. So I just wish you well in that, and um, I hope that you and your family can find a means to have an enjoyable holiday, and we'll keep you in our thoughts and prayers.
Thank you.
Michael Castillero, ladies and gentlemen, claims to be a victim of the Biden Justice Department. And it's a tough story to hear. We'll be back right after this.